go over here. All right. Muy buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos en otro Conversando Concisos. Mi nombre es Edgar Rojas desde Tennessee, Estados Unidos. Estamos fritos por acá. Y hoy tenemos un show muy especial. Tenemos a una persona que debe ser familiar para muchos de ustedes y para muchas de ustedes. Se acuerdan de Ryan English, el señor inglés. Y tenemos otro invitado especial, al señor Kevin Haynes, que es el CEO de Cybrary, y estaremos conversando con ellos en un minuto. Primero que todo, la invitación a todos a que nos acompañen el 17 y 18 de mayo en Cartagena, en la quinta edición de CISO's Latam Summit. Tenemos un grupo impresionante, de verdad, de expertos que nos van a acompañar. Tacticaledge.co para que se conecten, miren quién viene y se registren. Vámonos entonces al inglés. Kevin, Ryan, thank you so much for being with us in Conversando con CISOs. There's no translation speaking with CISOs. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And hola, ¿cómo estás to your audience?
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I appreciate being here. That's about all I know, Edgar. So we'll have to switch back to English now.
No, that's fantastic. And Ryan, I haven't seen you in a long time. I think some of the CISOs, they still talk about you, man. You're becoming a legend in Latin America. So welcome back.
Hey, listen, there's not a better place to become a legend. Being a
Edgar,
legend in Latin America is actually a pretty good title to have. But each time I've been on the show, Ed, or gone down to the event, uh, I, I I hey, I will take being a legend in Latin American CISO circles in that community all
Yes,
day, all
it's
day.
hey,
Thank you. Thanks
Edgar,
for having us on. By the way.
sure.
Edgar, should I do an audit of Ryan's expense account from Latin America? I
Well,
don't know what Ryan is doing to be a legend.
actually, you know what? And really quickly, he actually, I invited him to join us in October, as you may know, or as you well know, and he
Yeah.
was leading
Yep.
one of the tables, and we had about 44 CISOs that went around and spoke with him during those 2 days, and Ryan was fantastic again, doing all his knowledge and everything in English, and some of the CISOs trying to translate for him. I
Translate.
tried to translate. So no, it was fantastic. But yeah, I think last I saw Ryan buying drinks for everybody there. That's how he became a legend. So a whole bunch of
Yeah.
mojitos for everyone. I don't know how he
Yeah.
expensed that, but
I I and I didn't. I did not submit that. I have a yeah. I don't think it's fair to make anybody else pay for how much I like to drink when I'm at parties.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I never
Break,
submit those. Never.
break everyone. So
Yeah.
Cyberry. I've been talking to a lot of people in Latin America, Kevin. Ryan knows this, and Cyberry is becoming a very well known name in the region. A lot of people know that you're one of the top uh, companies that offer training
Yeah.
and expertise, and one of the top ones, right? So that's pretty good, and I've taken some of the training that you offer specifically to the MITRE attack. It's pretty good. And so the question, Kevin, that's always in my mind. Um, First, let's start with Cyber. Exactly what is Cyber? What you guys offer?
Yeah, so I think about Cyber in the simplest terms as it performs two functions. One is an on ramp and onboarding of people to cybersecurity. So that can be individuals who are just students. Maybe they don't have a job, but they want a job in cyber. And it can also be companies, that are hiring people, and they need to get them, upskilled and have certain foundational knowledge in cybersecurity. And so think of it as a massively scalable way to onboard and on ramp people to cybersecurity. That's point one. We all know, in my passion, before doing what I'm doing at Cybrary, I was the COO of a company called SecureWorks.
Yes, I read that.
And one of the largest, yeah. So that my job, I was on the I was supporting all of our CISOs, all of our customers all over the world, and responsible for the security of our services. And as much as I love certifications and onboarding and on-ramping people, it is not sufficient to do the job. So the job is really hard, it's getting harder. And I believe in my passion, I'm passionate about once we get people interested in onboarding and on-ramping, because we need millions more people.
Okay.
We then need to really nurture them and provide that skills development. So the hands-on, how to do things hands-on, the technical skills and the critical thinking skills to really be effective in the job. And so that never, ever stops. And a lot of learning time, a lot of times though, people think about learning is just getting started and then you stop. But for us, that's only the start, because you really have to constantly learn. And you'll see our content on Cybrary starts to shift towards more lab centric, virtual machines, more threat actor sort of scenarios, more of that MITRE type things for people, because we know that just the initial foundations and certifications is great, just not sufficient.
That's great, and that brings up a lot of questions, right? So, for example, the company I work with, right? I work with TCS,
Oh yeah,
humongous company, right?
yeah.
And I know that is one of the things we have issues with, specifically in Latin America, right? It's onboarding,
Yeah.
finding the experts. And in Brazil, for example, they're finding that they're opening a new center of excellence in an area in Brazil. There's not enough people, not enough
Yeah.
experts. So what they've done is they've gone out and started alliances with local universities, where we help TCS help them with the curriculum and all the stuff. And the idea is that when the students graduate, they get a guaranteed job at TCS. So that's what companies are doing. How
Yeah.
will Cybrary come in, for example, to TCS? How can you help a company such as ours, especially in the onboarding, on ramping, because that's extremely important.
Yeah. So number one is, I was trying to solve this problem. Sounds like kind of like what you were trying to solve, and probably a lot of the other CISOs on this call are trying to solve, which is you solve it within your ability, within your ecosystem to solve it. For me at SecureWorks, that was like, I was trying to get maybe 100 people into a year into some kind of program academy. We were hiring 800 people a year, so it was helping, but not so. So I came to Cybrary because I felt like nobody was solving the problem at scale, and the problem is in the millions, not the hundreds. And so one of the things Cybrary can do is, if we do our job well, we will bring and on-ramp millions of people into cybersecurity. Right now, it's not going to. There's more to do, but it's going to help. Right, if we can do that and be successful, it's going to help everyone. Some of that is just, if you're in a company, you can take somebody who's most of the way there, and they just need to get some of the more foundationals, and then they need to get the training for the job. But you can take those people that are raw and invest in their development. But you may not be able to take somebody who's knows nothing, right? Or somebody maybe who is a financial analyst, right? But has a very critical, sort of analytics mind, and they want to learn, and they think about patterns all day long.
Yes.
So that's what Cybrary can do to help. Number one. Number two is about 60% of our revenue, maybe 65% of our revenue, comes from businesses that are buying Cybrary to provide it to their teams. And this could be, the obvious one is give it to your people in your security organization. But a lot of organizations are now opening that up to IT and even engineering. because that idea that how can we not only upskill, which is training somebody who's already in the role, but reskill, which is take people who are in other areas but who have a lot of the basic, the basic things that you would need to be able to come into cybersecurity, because we're all going to have to figure out how to get more people in. So yeah, like about 65% of our revenue comes from businesses, and we help them that way. And a lot of times what we do is we build what we call a career path. And we have some that you can use just out of the box, but some organizations want to create their own. And it's very flexible. So you could say, I want everybody who comes to my company to have a baseline of, skills, and you can make it whatever you want. But it could be like, I want them to know the basics of networking. I want them to know the basics of operating systems. I want them to know sort of things like Active Directory and those sorts of, sort of fundamentals. I want them to have some coding skills, maybe a bit of Python. I want them to, those sorts of things. And what we can do is then show, as a CISO, it's very easy to then deploy that to anybody in your organization. And then you can literally sit there and watch their progression through that, right?
So you do have PKIs and things like that allows the CISO to keep track of.
Yeah, it's a very robust, and someday we can all show you. I can show you now, but I'll show you some of. But yes, very robust reporting for all of that. And one of the interesting things, Edgar, I'll tell you about that. I did not expect when I came to Cybrary. So imagine you want to bring on some. You said what I just said. You want to make sure everybody has these fundamentals, and you assign it to all your employees and everybody new coming in. Like at least so everybody has a certain thing. One of the weird things that happens, it's not weird now that I think about it, but I didn't expect it. You start noticing what people are doing that you didn't ask them to do. So Cybrary has over 1,900 hours of, everything from, every kind of thing you can think about, from red team to blue team and all the different kinds of things. And so what we see and what a lot of our customers see is maybe we assigned Ryan a bunch of defensive, SOC analyst type things. And he's doing that, but he's also doing these things over here that are red team oriented, or maybe they're research, threat intel.
It makes sense.
And it's great. Like, hey, Ryan, why are you doing that? Yeah. And we find out that people find these paths for people, because I'm interested in that. So if you can encourage Ryan may stay at your company longer and have a longer retention. And also you may find that, hey, I'm really hurting on my IR team because I don't have the people. But this guy over here, I wasn't even thinking about. He loves that, right? Yeah. He's doing that. So find a way to get him there.
That's good, because personally, my son, and it's funny because you're talking about this, and Ryan, I go to you in a second. My son graduated as a I don't know, international finance major. And he's like, Dad, I don't want to do that. I want to do what you do, cybersecurity. What do I do? Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, perfect. Do your networking, exactly what you just said, right? And I bought him some Cisco switches. I taught him some networking.
Yeah, good.
But then he went on his own and did his own training for, certifications. As you said, certifications is a plus.
Yeah.
He was able to get a job as an, level 1. He's been there for a year, and he already knows. Dad, he's like, what? There's so many things to do in cybersecurity. That's the first thing he noticed. And I said, take it easy. Take a deep breath. Yeah. You don't want to burn out before you even start, right?
Yeah.
I said, just watch, listen, and see what you like. 6 months, 7 months later, he says, you know what? I love the defensive side. I love the blue team. I was like, dude.
Great.
All right, so now you know about red teaming, blue teaming, purple teaming.
Thumbs up, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm guiding him.
Yeah.
And I'm guiding him towards Cybrary. And every day I see him.
Good.
Have you gone to Cybrary? Because I do believe in what you offer. But let's go to Ryan. Ryan, your experience in Latin America, right? What was you hear from the CISOs the same issue, right? About resources, lack of resources. I mean, this is worldwide. This is not just the States or Europe, correct?
That's correct. The questions, when we would do the Q&A sessions after the last conference, the Q&A sessions were identical to what you would hear right here in the States when we talk to our customer advisory board, for instance, which was only like a couple of weeks after the meeting down in Columbia, and we were hearing some of the exact same problems from our customer advisory is how do we maximize the time that we even can make available to our team members to go and do extra training to make them any better. Like the problem isn't sometimes whether or not they want to let their people get up its budget that some of the people were talking about, well, we're trying to incentivize our team members to go and do extra training, even if it means doing it on their own time. We'll give them a bonus. There's times when that kind of creativity is the only way to get your staff to the next level, because so many of them find out that trying to do that while they're on the clock means they're not getting essential tasks done. But you know what? This isn't just a cybersecurity or an infosec problem. This isn't just a corporate problem. This happens with doctors, police officers.
Yeah.
This happens in the military. Everybody in specialty fields has to improve because the threat level changes and the threat content changes. So adapting to that as a defender is your only hope. But yeah, that's the hard part. In the CISOs that we spoke with down there said the same things that I've heard in other places, which is, well, you tell me how to find the time to get my guys better because I'm too busy making them work to stay afloat.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
when Kevin brought the research to the rest of the company and said, you've all heard this for the sales guys, especially in your sales pitch. Oh, if we give people the extra time and the availability to go and train and get better, we're afraid we'll lose them. And that is not true in any other field of endeavor that I've ever been in or witnessed. I've even had, okay, so, I was in the military and did a lot of contracting. I've had surgery like 14 times on my person, for fixing things that I broke
We knew
doing
you
my
were
old job.
bionic. Yeah, we knew you were bionic.
I got all kinds of extra parts. But one thing I noticed over the years was when I talked to the doctors who were going to do surgery on me, I try to find out, like, hey, do you go to any symposiums about this? When was the last time you've seen an advancement in this knee surgery you're going to do for me? And I'm waiting for the doc. I'll go on my back one time. I went to 4 different doctors because it was only until the fourth one where he said, "Oh, I just came from this symposium in Texas. We're using a new method to do the thing that I'm going to do to you." And I said, "Say no more.
So
You're my guy. I need to schedule with you." So, because the very first time I ever had surgery, the guy was considered the gold standard in the field. He was the surgeon for the Atlanta Braves.
wow.
What I didn't know until years later was that he had considered himself the expert and never wanted to hear another thing about how a process could be made better. And it wasn't until 2 years later where I found out that what he had done in my knee was not only not good enough to fix what was existing, it was something that people stopped using like 5 years prior to that surgery. And that problem persisted and has led me to a lot of pain down the road, right? And then that's when I learned the lesson. Find the doctor who's not so proud of his achievements that he's not going to learn more. And if that's true in medical science, why isn't that true here?
In fact,
You
and
know?
that brings a good question because there was an event that I attended this morning, and it was an interesting question. If how have if the experts in the panel, if they have seen, or what do they think has been the difference in cybersecurity in the past 10 or 15 years? If they've seen a difference, man, I started thinking about it. And you go back to when we started cybersecurity started, right? In the 90s, right? With the I love you and virus and worms
Sure.
and then McAfee came on, Norton, and then the firewalls appear, and we've gone from that, right, to where we are right now with ransomware and state-sponsored actors and ransomware as a service. It's changed. So, Kevin, the question to you, because you alluded to this during your comment, the numbers are real about the need for experts. Now, we all keep hearing millions and millions of cybersecurity experts are needed. Are Is that a true number, or is that a PR number or a sales number? And you're
No, I don't know that anybody holds the source of truth, a single source of truth on that. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, when I was my last job, it felt like I needed millions. It can feel like that, and you're looking at one person, and you need millions. So
okay.
here's how I kind of try to understand that. So if you kind of look at the U.S. and typically there's probably about 500, somewhere between 500,000 to 1 million jobs that are open. It's kind of cybersecurity jobs. And they derive that, different sort of research groups derive that by scraping, like big job boards and things like that. And I've even heard the government, like the administration, different administrations quote similar numbers to that. So I believe that's probably, I believe there's a little bit of inflation in that, maybe a little, but I don't know, because every customer that I talk to, they're like, I need people. I need a person. I can't find this. And so if you just go and say how many organizations are looking for one or two people, how many organizations are there, you can also get to big numbers.
Yeah, that's right.
So then my experience of traveling around, my last organization that I ran, I had customers in 60 different countries. I had people working for me in 40 different countries, something like that. And so I would travel around a good bit and talk to all of our customers. Is my favorite thing to do. And what I would notice is different geos have slightly different. Some of it's worse. Like, I remember some of my first visits to Japan. And I mean, it was very, like I thought I was hurting. They were really hurting, and so as I traveled around, so I think you have to look at it on a global basis. So like when you look at the data and they're quoting these numbers, are they quoting a number that's just for your region, or is it a global number? I think oftentimes they use the global number because it gets more headlines. It gets more eyeballs. Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, if you said, hey, look, what's the global number? I don't know, but I'm sure it's probably 3 to 4 times as big as the U.S. number.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the way that you put it, if every company is looking for 1 or 2 people, which we all know everyone is, how many corporations do the math? So yeah, so the numbers do add up. But so that goes to the next question, which I know Ryan heard this from the CISOs in Latin America, and we hear it from every CISO everywhere, right? And the question is, if there's so many jobs available, why is it so difficult for people to be employed in these jobs, right? And
I want to help on that one too, Ryan.
and the question goes, and the question goes, how, HR. So do you guys have any type of plan on helping HR get to a real reality, and and actually try to get the right people? Don't put all this work, and then we need someone to do 5 different things and then pay intern level thing. That is Cyberry trying to do any type of work like that with HR to educate them on the proper requirements for the positions?
Yeah. So let me see if I can take that, Ryan. And then you can. So when I think about like why is it so hard? I believe that we're not helping ourselves. We're hurting ourselves a bit as an industry in a couple ways. One way is that when somebody says, how do I get a job in cyber? A lot of times we will say, well, do this certificate, do A+, do Net+, do Sec+, do CY. And while that's good advice, there needs to be a second part of that sentence, which is, and don't keep doing certifications forever.
Right.
Like, get the basics, and then do what your son did, which is start figuring out a way to get hands-on skills through platforms like Cybrary or other platforms that do that, and get yourself an entry job and start learning the hands-on piece. So what I see is too many people, we only told them the first part of that sentence. And so they keep doing certifications, and they go to job interviews with people like us, and we can tell that they don't have a clue, right? They're not. I don't mean that wrong. What I mean is they're not close enough to be job ready that we can do something with them.
Okay.
So we often our advice is, well, hey, look, maybe go back and do these things, and so for them, it's frustrating.
Yes.
It's like there's millions of jobs. I just spent the last year doing what this person told me, and then now I'm getting rejected over and over. So they leave. They just stop.
Yeah.
And then for us, for all of us, we're frustrated because to hire one person, we got to go on 100 interviews.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
I mean, it's a time, wasted. I'm not going to call it wasted, but there's no other
yeah,
easy word. But it's a time
yeah.
wasted for both parties. Yeah.
So there's a few things we're trying to do about that. One is, in the coming months, we're going to take a stronger stand on what we believe to be a set of foundations that we don't care where you're starting. If you're starting in cyber, this is the path, or a really good path. And we're gonna embed into that path some basic certs, because we think those are good because it helps you feel confident in your accomplishments, you're accomplishing things, and it sets a frame. But we're also going to embed really hands-on skills. So you're in there, you're in a virtual environment where there's real recent threat actor type activity, and you're prompted to do something, right? So and we're going to put things in there that are critical thinking about, all right, well, we know if you know this, if you see this, then what might you start looking for, right? What's the next thing that you might try to look for? So that critical thinking about how an adversary might achieve an objective. So those sorts of things. And the last thing I'll say, I'll turn to Ryan. So Ryan and our threat intel team really took, I think, a very interesting research project to create an assessment that anybody could use that would allow them to go, basically, it would feel like they're working in a SOC. There would be real tools, like, a real threat, real SIM, a real malware analysis tool, et cetera, and simulated traffic, but that is traffic that is real, that's just simulated in an environment, and present that in a way where there's time pressure.
Okay.
Right. And we created a beta. Actually, it was really an alpha, and I think it was really awesome. And so we got a lot of feedback on that. And so we're going to keep working on that, because I think that's the other part, which is there a way I can provide something to people to say, look, this is what the job is going to like, and can you do the basics things? And imagine maybe you're good at packet analysis, but but sort of you're really bad at kind of managing time, or something like that. Yeah. Like, we can kind of help you, right? So those sorts of things. So I don't know. I'll turn it to you, Ryan.
Well, yeah, Kevin was being generous when he said we got feedback and we're going to go retool the thing that we built, because when my boss Dave Mader and I had kind of thought about this over the last couple of years, really, one of the things that we were drawing on was kind of my experience coming out of government service and doing the kinds of assessments that you must do to get into certain types of units. If you want to be in a better place, you have to be maybe a little bit faster and endure a little bit more sleep loss and things of that nature, right? So these assessments are usually, let's say, a couple of weeks to a month long, and the student or the subject doesn't necessarily know exactly what the pass or fail criteria are. They're just expected to go all out with all the tools they have in their their mind and their heart, right, to give maximum effort for however long until somebody says you passed or failed. So we tone that idea down to make the SOC assessment, which is you're going to be given tickets to work on that are in a pretty standard format for anybody. Like, let's say, we couldn't use Sentinel, right, as our SOC, as our tool for our SIM, but we use something that's similar to that. As you begin to solve problems, you notice that you're running out of time. So you have to look for answers to what these tickets, these normalized, standardized types of tickets that we would find in SOCs everywhere. When we talk to people who ran SOCs for level 1, the idea was that if we can sample that and give that experience to the user who's going to go for a job, if we got buy-in from large organizations that would say, yeah, that's what my SOC looks like, anybody who passes that test is at least good enough to be here at level 1. And we feel like that this tool would be something that once we get it right, perfectly right, or close enough, and it's a framework that employers can use to put new hires through and judge whether or not they're ready. And the best part of it is what they need to work on the side. So you can get a person who's pretty good at all the basics, but the tool also says, look, you'll be better served by also, here's a few things for you to become better at. This is where we've discovered some of the things that you don't have great skills in. Like anything else, okay, well, too much time on these things. Now we know that you need help there. The idea being that if we had this thing ready to go for people, their HRs can have something to draw on. Because as you know, at most HR departments don't know enough about what it is that the operator does every day to make a good hiring call. And that's been a problem. And philosophically, we can go all day about why middle management and HR aren't prepared for operators. And that's one of the things Cybrary is working on. But Kevin said the most important thing, which is in the coming months, we're going to have what we think is the framework for a learner to build their foundation up and their skill sets to a point of readiness that they could go just about anywhere as an entry-level person.
That's fantastic.
And that's an internal, yeah.
No, I was going to say that's fantastic because that brings a lot of questions. Again, I go to my experience with my son, right? He spent about 6 or 7 months, studying for the entry-level certification because that's the requirement, right? Everywhere we went, SOC level 1, you need to have A+, or at least get it in 3 months. If you don't have that, have some hands-on. You don't have hands-on, right? You're brand, you're a financial guy and all that stuff. Your brain is different. So the idea with this framework and everything is, your findings, while you're using it right now, do you see that it's beneficial for anyone that's entry level to really know about the basics of networking and security plus, to be able to learn how to do, let's say, SOC 1 type of level analysis? Basically what I'm getting at is, will it be easier, instead of spending 7 months to get those basic certifications, spend those 7 months in this framework and get real hands-on, and then later decide if you want to get their certifications?
I know what you're getting at. Yeah, I know what you're saying there. A SOC level 1 guy doesn't necessarily have to know what layer in the OSI framework that the attack was meant to come into. Is that helpful? Absolutely. But who's really good in cybersecurity? People who were once nurses or mechanics. You know why? And I keep meeting these people at conferences. They understand complex systems. All have either redundancies or liabilities based on something else in the system. All right. So when something upstream of this part isn't working, that might not be that this part isn't working, right? The fuel pump that doesn't get enough to the engine. So mechanics have this really good transition ramp because they understand complexity. Nurses, doctors, same thing. If you knew how the tools function, and you could sort through the databases and decide where the problem is, you don't necessarily have to know, you don't have to be a Cisco certified networking expert to be an all-star in a SOC. Right. You could be finding things that in a sense of curiosity. Yeah. We had a friend of my boss, David Maynard, came into town and while we were having our team week last week, everybody in the company was there. A gentleman by the name of Marcus Hutchins. You may have heard that name. If you ever heard of something called WannaCry, you've heard this gentleman's name. And when he was asked, what do you think is the best skill to learn if you want to get into cybersecurity? Remember, Kevin, what his answer was?
Yeah.
He said, don't learn how to ask questions.
Yeah.
He said, don't let your pride get in the way. Ask questions, and everybody in this industry will help you out.
Yeah.
So just because a specialist has something going for them and can reverse engineer things, that doesn't necessarily make them great at defending a network, an enterprise. It's a system. Yeah. So
I'll add to that just real quickly by saying, when we create and we already have career paths today for things like SOC analysts. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about is just really trying to create a foundation sort of path, think of that way. I do believe, I mean, we're in the midst of building it now. I do believe that we will have some basic certs that will be in that, like an A+, for example.
Nice.
And the reason why, even though it may take a little longer, for that, it doesn't stop you. Like we'll build it where it's integrated, so you can start doing, kind of really interesting puzzles and challenges and get hands-on in labs. But the reason why I think we're going to make sure there's at least some basic certifications is because that is one way. It's like it's a way for people to feel like they've accomplished something and a milestone and something to work towards, and it's sort of, it drives people, it motivates people, and it also, for all the rest of us, here, it also, they start to, they learn a language. They learn a language really that allows them to connect and converse and talk to people like us better, right? If they do that.
Yep.
So, but the thing we're going to avoid though is getting stuck in certification forever.
Yes.
Because that won't help them.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's the way that the whole industry started. I remember meeting people with their business, when we still use business cards, right? And like 20 different things, but with commas. And we're like, dude, you should have spent your time getting a PhD. It would have been better than 20 different certifications. It was just stupid at some point. Kevin, so this is a Latin American CISOs thing. So Latin America. How does Cybrary see it? Do you guys have plans for Latin America? And by Latin America, I don't mean just Mexico and Brazil, which is everyone thinks of that. I'm thinking Mexico all the way to Argentina. Any plans there? What do you guys see?
Well, I definitely, so I'll say this, which is, I should talk to you some more about what our in your audience about what our plans should be.
Okay.
I'm the kind of like, I come from a background of sort of building products and that kind of thing. And I tend to think about things as, how do we build for, our customers, right? And you have to build something, and then you get feedback, and then you iterate really fast. So Cybrary has not, we're a startup.
Yes.
So, the thing about being a startup is you have to be really, really focused on priorities, because you can't do everything. We just, you just can't. Yeah. And so we started out, with U.S. English. We're based in the U.S. Makes sense. But we found very quickly that we're being used all over the world. And so one of the things that's on my mind is, and I'd love maybe if there's a way to get feedback from your audience. What could we do to make it better for you? Obviously, there's translation, localization, but a lot of those things, in security, right? Some of those things would be helpful, but maybe not. Maybe some are more helpful than others. But I also think about even beyond translation and the language piece of it. Are there certain kinds of regional sort of roles, or is there something nuanced about the content that would be better, for those areas? Maybe there's maybe we could, we're talking about career paths or foundations. Maybe we could build one that's a Latin America, foundation, and maybe it has like slight differences, and maybe we think about ways that we could incorporate some translation and localization into that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm open to anything. I mean, my goal is to help the cybersecurity problem at scale, and we can't do that if we're not doing that on a global basis.
No, that's great. And as Ryan found out, right, the issue in Latin America is not the translation because they all know cybersecurity is all English based, so they
Right.
know, right? Now, that at minimum they need to read it and understand it, and at least somehow understand it, hearing it. But the whole thing goes mostly in Latin America. It's all about pricing. It's
Yeah.
right. That's the major thing, right? So yes.
Well, we'll figure out what works.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're working on some capabilities that would allow us to do some pricing and packaging for. So like I'd love to talk to you about that. So and again audience feedback, like what makes sense.
Absolutely.
What makes sense for for the different regions, and look, we'll do what we can. We're here for the community.
Good. I appreciate that. Yeah, and again, internet is big and everyone has access to Cybrary, be it from Colombia, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, anywhere. And I know a lot of them will start to access your service and your solutions. I appreciate your time, Kevin, Ryan. Any last words, Kevin, before we call it a day?
I got two really. They'll be really quick. One is that report that you mentioned, that report that research.
Yeah.
The thing that jumped off the page to me, I couldn't believe it when I read it. The report said that 79% of cybersecurity leaders rank cyber training, their team, a 4 out of a 5 in terms of helping them prevent breaches.
Wow.
Okay, like I don't know how many other things you're going to do that are going to be a 4 out of a 5 in terms of preventing. So I think that's important for all of us to just believe, like, to really lean in on training our people, investing in our people, and then secondly, I'll tell you, I think about AI, the Chat GPT thing. I think about robotics, IoT, quantum. We're going to have to all learn at a faster pace. Like going to university and stopping. That's never going to work we're going to be unnecessary. We will all be unnecessary if we don't change our mind about that. We're going to have to learn faster than ever. Perfect. That's it for me.
Perfect. Wow. Ryan?
Kevin was up early this morning, apparently, and I looked into one of our Slack channels, and he had posted that he asked Chat GPT a question about, how do I build a career in cybersecurity? Right? And obviously it wasn't a very nuanced answer from the chatbot, but there were a lot of things that we talk about in that answer. What scares me about stuff like that is when I first started seeing people write or ask that to write code, hey, do this for me in Python, or even, hey, find a vulnerability in this program, and ChatGPT was doing that. It meant that it lit a fuse in my mind, like, hey, we have to accelerate everything we do on a learning scale, because now this tool and then the other tool and then the next tool comes that are good for good guys, also great for bad guys.
Yes.
So that you have to stay apace in an industry that requires you to be moving fast anyway. Yes. So you can't take a day off. I spent the last 3 days helping my mom move some stuff, and I felt like I missed 2 weeks. Oh. I really did. It's not just the number of things in our channels that we miss in the flow of conversation. It's something technologically happened in 72 hours that I feel behind on. When you look at you've had Wendy Nather on before, and she's talked about Cisco's the yearly survey that they do for outcomes. Yes. And if you remember, she mentioned that the organizations, and this is all self-reporting organizations, that felt like they had prepared themselves best for the challenges in the field for securing large organizations. They reported that they spend just as much money on training people that they do on processes and technology that they buy. Like that's a pretty serious commitment of resources. And the outcomes showed that the companies who felt best prepared were the ones that didn't skimp on training the people that they have running the processes and the actual technology that they employ. So that should tell you something. When even Cisco, who sells stuff mainly, is talking about like, hey, the outcomes are pretty clear to us.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it doesn't have to be Cybrary. I'd like it if it was,
Yeah.
but get your knowledge from somewhere and
But
keep doing it.
and as a closing from me, as a being a director and having to stay up to abreast, usually the training that companies offer are pretty bad, right? That we know we want to train, but we go
Right.
different, right? I mean, I don't want to use, something that starts with an L, training, or other things. I'm like, oh my God, I know more than those people, and I'm not being, like just putting myself out there. But we do need things like Cyber because I've used Cyber and I think the training is really, really good. And I can go as fast as I want to, right? And it's very
Right.
technical. If I want to get really technical, I know you guys will get really technical really quickly. That's the type of training that companies like the one I work for, we need to start adopting. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and good luck getting there. There's a big market there, so
Yeah.
kudos to you guys.
Awesome. Well, mucho gusto and nos vemos.
All right. Thank you very much. Talk to you
Mucho
again.
gusto. Feliz Navidad, everybody.
Feliz Navidad. And, Ray, thank you so much.